On October 19, 2016, Lakewood police received a missing person report. A young mother, Roa Al Danoon, hadn't shown up to work for 3 days. Inside her apartment, officers found a pan of cooked chicken, completely dried out, alongside a jug of milk and a glass, untouched and left to rot. What investigators found next would unravel a carefully constructed web of lies and betrayal. This is the story of Roa Al Danoon. I'm here to bring you a case that shook a quiet Cleveland community, a story that peeled back the layers of a seemingly ordinary life to expose a horrific truth. This case changed how police approached welfare checks, teaching them that sometimes the most disturbing answers lie hidden in plain sight. What you're about to hear has never been fully revealed in this way, detailing the precise moments and critical clues that finally brought justice for Roa. Roa Al Danoon was a beacon of quiet strength. A 24-year-old single mother, she had built a new life in the U.S. after arriving as a refugee from Iraq in 2014. Her world revolved around her young son. Every morning, she woke early, prepared his breakfast, and got him ready for daycare. Her days were a predictable rhythm of working at a local restaurant, coming home to her son, and nurturing the small, peaceful life they shared. She was described by her co-workers as private but friendly, someone who kept to herself but was deeply dedicated to her child. Roa's dream was simple: to provide a safe, stable, and happy future for her son, free from the turmoil they had left behind. She was diligently working towards her residency status, a testament to her determination and resilience. Her co-workers at the Aladdin restaurant relied on her, and her son depended on her for everything. She was a survivor, having fled war and established herself in a new country. Her life, however, was not without its shadows. Her divorce from her husband, Fahad Mohammed Sahid, in September 2017, though granting her full custody, had left her with a lingering fear. Fahad, despite court-ordered protection, continued to loom, a constant, unsettling presence. This fear, a part of her daily existence, dictated many of her choices, including her final, unsuspecting encounter on October 16th. But Roa had no idea that her past, which she so desperately tried to outrun, was about to violently collide with her present. When Roa didn't show up for work for 3 consecutive days, her coworkers knew something was amiss. On October 19th, 2016, their concern escalated into a call to the Lakewood police for a welfare check. A patrol unit was dispatched to her apartment on the northeast side of town at 3 p.m. Initially, it seemed like a routine call. Police often respond to such reports, especially when filed by employers, only to find the missing person has simply taken an unannounced leave. Officers expected a quick in and out. The first knock went unanswered, but even before stepping inside, something felt profoundly wrong. As they waited, a faint, sharp, unsettling aroma began to drift from Roa's unit. It was a sour smell, like something starting to rot. This wasn't the typical scent of an empty apartment. This was the smell of decay. This smell immediately put the officers on edge. It signaled something more serious than a simple absence. A strong, foul odor combined with 3 days of no contact painted a grim picture. They knocked again, hoping against hope for a response, but only silence met them. There were no screams, no signs of struggle from outside, no shattered glass or forced entry. Despite the alarming smell and Roa's prolonged absence, police couldn't just force their way in. Unlawful entry was a serious concern, even with a mounting sense of urgency. They knew they couldn't wait much longer. It was time to gain entry. They called building maintenance, requesting a spare key. While waiting, the officers took a moment to speak with Roa's neighbor. "Hello. Hi. How are you doing, sir?" "Good. Have you seen her, your neighbor?" an officer asked. "No, not today," the neighbor replied. "When's the last time you saw her?" "Haven't seen her in a couple days." "How often do you usually see her?" Maybe once or twice a week." The neighbor described Roa as quiet, friendly, but someone who largely kept to herself. Her infrequent appearances didn't immediately alarm him, even as that sharp, sour smell continued to waft from her apartment. The neighbor also mentioned her car wasn't typically seen in the garage, which further compounded the mystery. The officers checked. Indeed, her vehicle was gone. What do you think was the most concerning detail about the apartment at this stage? Drop a comment below with your theories. A few minutes later, maintenance arrived with the spare key. The door swung open, and the officers stepped into an apartment that told a story all its own. It was quiet, unnervingly so. The air was heavy with the same sour, putrid smell, now more intense. They called out, "Lakewood Police? Anybody home?" Only silence answered. It was immediately clear that Roa hadn't just walked out. Something had happened here. Roa's bedroom was in disarray. Clothes, papers, and personal belongings were scattered everywhere, suggesting a panicked or hurried search, or perhaps a struggle. Yet, in stark contrast, her son's room held packed bags by the bed, as if someone had planned a departure that never materialized. This juxtaposition was jarring. If she had left with her son, why were their bags still there? Untouched? The kitchen held the most unsettling clues. The source of the pungent odor was immediately obvious. A jug of milk left out with a glass beside it, completely spoiled. Next to it, a pan of cooked chicken sat on the stove, dried out and left to rot. It looked like a meal had been prepared, interrupted, and then abandoned. The scene felt deliberate, not random, as if Roa and her son had been suddenly pulled from their home mid-activity. There was no blood, no signs of forced entry, no notes. The apartment offered no direct answers to where they might have gone. With no solid leads from the apartment, officers returned to Roa's workplace, the Aladdin restaurant. They spoke to her co-workers, mostly women who had grown close to her. One name, however, kept coming up, Hamza Bal. He was the only male friend in her inner circle at work, and crucially, some co-workers identified him as the last person to have seen Roa before she vanished. On October 22, 2016, detectives called Hamza to the station. He appeared calm, comfortable, and willing to cooperate. He recounted meeting Roa through a mutual friend who owned the restaurant. They had become friends, talking occasionally, and he insisted their relationship was purely platonic. He maintained he had a girlfriend and was even engaged. Hamza then shared a critical detail. Roa was terrified of her ex-husband, Fahad. Despite protection orders prohibiting him from being near her or their son, Fahad continued to stalk her, showing up unexpectedly, watching from a distance. Roa, Hamza claimed, never felt safe. He described how on the night of October 16th, the very night she was reported missing, they had been at her apartment smoking hookah. Roa had been on edge, constantly checking the peephole. So then at 6:35, I told her that I have to leave, Hamza recalled. And then she wanted to check from the little thing by the door if you know he's there, 'cause sometimes, he gets sent and he was there. He confirmed Fahad was in the hallway. Roa, worried about her reputation in the Arabic community and wanting to avoid confrontation, had told Hamza to leave through the back door. This detail transformed the missing persons case into a potential stalking case. What would you have done if you were Hamza in that situation? Share your thoughts below. Detectives quickly pieced together Fahad's history of domestic violence and his violation of the protection order. This was enough to move in. On October 25, 2016, police arrested Fahad at his workplace. He was calm, seemingly prepared for the arrest. At the station, he was informed of his arrest and that Roa was missing. He claimed he saw Roa on October 16th, around 11 p.m., when she dropped off their son at his house. She was supposedly heading to a party in Detroit, Michigan, and would return the next day. He claimed he tried calling and messaging her when she didn't return, but got no response. None of this made sense. Why would Roa, who feared Fahad, willingly drop off their son with him, especially given the protection order prohibiting him from being with their child? Fahad was now the last known person to have seen Roa alive. He was booked into Cuyahoga County Jail, but Roa was still missing. The case stalled. The apartment had been searched once, but something didn't sit right. If Roa vanished after leaving Fahad's, why was her apartment in such disarray? Detectives returned for a second sweep. This time, they found something crucial: the hookah. Hamza had claimed they smoked it, but the device was broken, and its hose was missing. A few small parts were found in the kitchen trash. When confronted, Hamza, despite his earlier composure, was confused and offered no explanation for the broken hookah or missing hose. He continued to deny any romantic involvement with Roa, stressing his engagement. To clear his name, he agreed to a polygraph test, which he passed, leaving investigators at another dead end. Still, detectives persisted. They turned to phone records. Fahad's phone showed a call made during the exact time Roa vanished. The number belonged to Amomar Sami, a friend of Fahad's. Chillingly, Amomar's phone location data from that night placed him right outside Fahad's apartment. This changed everything. On November 19th, Amomar was brought in. He appeared calm, ready to help, and stuck to his story. He met Fahad. They smoked cigarettes outside. Then he dropped Fahad off and went to Walmart alone. He claimed no knowledge of Roa's whereabouts. Detectives pressed him, emphasizing the severe consequences if Roa was harmed, including deportation for non-citizens. Amomar remained unyielding, but Amomar's story had a glaring hole. Officers checked Walmart's security footage. His car pulled into the lot as he claimed. But then, the passenger door opened, and out stepped Fahad. They weren't apart. They were together. The footage then showed both men entering Walmart, heading to the hardware section. There, Fahad grabbed a 6-foot digging shovel. Amomar stood right beside him as they purchased it. This was the first undeniable lie. Amomar had not only lied about being alone, he was directly tied to a suspicious purchase made immediately after Roa disappeared: a shovel, an item that could be used to bury a body. What do you think was Amomar's motivation for lying to the police? Let us know in the comments. Confronted with the video evidence, Amomar feigned forgetfulness, citing surgeries and medications. "I may have forgotten something," he claimed. "I have no problem. Help you any way I can." But the detectives weren't buying it. This was a deliberate lie, and he was obstructing an active missing person case. A warrant was issued, and Amomar Sami was arrested for obstructing justice and official business. With both Fahad and Amomar behind bars, the investigation still hit a wall. Months passed. Roa was still missing. Just when the case seemed to go cold, an unexpected phone call came in. "Michael, police and fire. Hi. Yes, I have information about a missing person. Okay. Her name is Roa Roa. After months of silence, someone was finally ready to talk. The caller was the girlfriend of Fahad's cellmate. Her boyfriend, who spoke Arabic, had been communicating with Fahad in jail. Over time, Fahad had revealed crucial details about Roa's disappearance. The boyfriend didn't just bring a story, he brought a hand-drawn map. A buried secret finally had coordinates. Detectives retrieved the inmate from county jail. He produced a crude map, allegedly drawn by Fahad, indicating the burial site. This new lead was exciting but cautiously approached. The inmate recounted Fahad's confession. On October 16th, Fahad had used a key to enter Roa's apartment building. He crept down the hallway and observed her bedroom door slightly ajar. Inside, he saw Roa with Hamza. Fahad claimed he quietly pulled out his phone and made a brief recording of them. He then left without a word, planning to confront Roa later. While this video was never found and believed to be a fabrication to save his image, the core of his confession was chilling. He admitted to burying Roa somewhere far, a place he was certain detectives would never find. On May 15, 2017, officers and the FBI's evidence response team converged on the location marked on the map. After hours of searching, an FBI supervisor struck something just beneath the surface. "What's that?" he asked, leaning down to brush away the dirt. It was the corner of a zipper on what felt like a canvas bag. Soon, the unmistakable smell of decomposition filled the air. They had found Roa. It was time to press Fahad for a full confession. Detectives confronted him with the evidence. Fahad, initially claiming Roa wanted to reconcile and had returned to his apartment with their child, eventually shifted his story. He said they had relations, and then sometime in the middle of the night he couldn't sleep. He heard movement in the kitchen, According to him, Roa was standing there with a knife, thinking he was asleep. He claimed he panicked, jumped out of bed, tried to disarm her, got behind her and began choking her. At that moment, he knew she was gone. The horror deepened as Fahad revealed the rest. I know that she's dead. I put her in a bag. So I ended up putting the bag in her car, took the shovel, took her to the park. I dug up a hole for about 2 hours. Booty hot. Fahad had not only killed Roa in cold blood, but he had buried her right in front of their young son. That boy, barely old enough to comprehend, had witnessed a trauma no child should ever carry. It took over a year of relentless investigation, confronting deceit, and sifting through the wreckage of a shattered family. But finally, justice caught up with Fahad Muhammad Sahid. On January 18, 2018, Fahad pleaded guilty to the involuntary manslaughter of Roa Al Danoon, along with charges of kidnapping and burglary. He was sentenced to a 25-year prison sentence. After serving his time, he would be deported back to Iraq, the very country he and Roa had fled together in search of safety. Fahad hadn't acted alone. His friend, Amomar Sami, who had tried to play innocent and obstruct the investigation, was exposed for his role in covering up the crime, from helping by the shovel to repeatedly lying to the police. For his actions, he was convicted and sentenced to 18 months behind bars. Roa Al Danoon's story is one of survival, strength, and stolen freedom. She escaped war, built a new life, and created a world centered around her son. She fought fiercely for her independence, but in the end, it was the past she tried to leave behind that tragically reclaimed her. If the story resonated with you, please share it to keep Roa's memory alive. Subscribe for more stories that delve deep into the truth and ensure justice is served. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, the quietest stories often hold the loudest truths.